This is the video that I have genuinely been dreading the most out of this entire Pack or Pass series because I have so many middle grades. I have so many middle grades, and it wasn't until I really put them all together that I realised just how many middle grades I have, and I am genuinely concerned that I'm going to want to keep ones that I've read more than I'm going to want to TBR any. And that's not how bookshelves should work. It should be like a solid 50-50. Genuinely concerned. Anyway, hi, my name is Hannah. You're watching another episode of Pack or Pass. Today we're doing middle grades. I'm going to start with the ones that I've read and loved and cherish and don't want to get rid of. Because if I don't, then I'm passing. They are not worthy of coming to Kent with me, and that would make me really sad. So the first one that is an absolute given I'm keeping is my entire box set of The Worst Witch. If you are finding that the people around you are talking about a certain turf, feel free to just very gently say, oh, but have you read the Worst Witch books? They're really good because they're for the same age category. You can see which ideas she has literally ripped from this series, and Jill Murphy has done nothing scandalous or even warranting being annoyed at. She is a treasure trove of wonder and loveliness, and as are these books. They are so wholesome. I love them. They were such gentle reads, and I will probably reread them at least once a year. Keeping, immediate keeping. I have Pig Heart Boy by Mallory Blackman, which is about a young black kid who has to get a pig heart, or is basically invited to be part of a experimental transfusion as the first boy to receive a pig heart, and the kind of backlash from animal rights activists and looking at health. And oh my god, it's so sad. It's so good and so sad. And I just, I want to keep it because it means so much to me. But I can only read this when I really need to cathart everywhere because the tears this book jerks. It's so precious. Precious baby boy. So we're keeping. We've got Uncle Montague's Tales of Terror by Chris Priestley, which is a collection, or it feels like it should be, it's just like a collection of short horror stories, but it is interwoven with this thread of Uncle Montague that is just really insidious. And there is something about middle grade mysteries and horrors that are just so extra creepy. This one I think is one of the better ones. I would happily read more by Chris Priestley because this is wild. I have Lily B on the Brink of Cool, which was a book that I read when I was a child, and I could not believe I was able to get a copy, and I also could not believe that this holds up. Basically, Lily B just really wants to be cool. Her best friend has gone off to this summer camp, and she feels really left behind and just kind of out of the loop, and she goes to a wedding, and she meets this girl who is just really cool. She dresses really well, she eats really cool things, and Lily B just really wants to impress her, and the things she does get Lily B into trouble, and it's a whole story about how far we go to kind of impress our friends. And the family rep in this is just really cute and really wholesome and really lovely. So yeah, I don't know if you'll be able to get a copy of this because it's so out of print, but I read this as a child and it holds up and I love it. The last one I actually read as a child was Ella Enchanted. I know you've heard of the film. I know you've heard of the Anne Hathaway film. Did you know it was a book first? The representation of the orcs feels very pointed, but I think that's the point, and it's a really interesting kind of take on that kind of like racism within a culture that's supposed to be whimsical and fantasy-like. They take that out of the film, but there are some concepts in this that are really beautiful and really interesting takes on fairy tales, and certainly the darker elements of fairy tales. I think it's one of those ones where I can read it as an adult and I can see those things more clearly than I could as a child. I think as a child they didn't creep me out as much as they do as an adult, but for the most part it holds up and I think it's really interesting. So yeah. Keeping. Beautiful. And then we have the middle grades that I've read as an adult that I've loved. We have my Phil Hicks Evelyn Jones mysteries. I loved these. Apparently so did my cat. This one now has claw marks in it, so that's fun. This is about a young girl called Evelyn Jones who discovers all manner of supernatural things, including ghosts, witches, and the fae. And it's just really fun in that kind of like spooky, gentle middle grade kind of way. Because the thing with middle grades is you can't just do blood and gore. It has to be really well done because you can't traumatize children. But if they enjoy horror, you want to be able to explore that in like a safe way. And this very much ticks those boxes. Really, really great. Which means there is one on my TBR that is automatically going to be kept, and that is Shadow Hall Academy by Phil Hicks, which is a kind of boarding school ghost mystery that I'm really looking forward to getting to. Hopefully I can get to it this Gothtober. Then we have the Darkwood trilogy, which is by Gabby Hutchinson Crouch. It is the funniest fairy tale retellings I've ever read. Like, this is the kind of thing where I was reading this and laughing audibly and then having to stop to explain to my flatmate the jokes that were making me laugh. To the point that when they read it, they were like, yeah, those are funny jokes, but I've already heard them because you've already told them to me. I was like, I'm sorry I ruined these books for you because they're so good. They're just really... If you want fairy tale mysteries but you're sick of a fairy tale, but you want a fairy tale mystery... So good, so good. Which means that I've got 3 more that are automatically on these shelves, which is the Rooks trilogy. Same author, but ghost mysteries. Sign me up. Sign me up. Automatically on my shelf. And what you can't see, I'm just going to move this slightly. The gap is getting smaller. The gap is getting smaller, and we still have many books. I have Pet by Akwaeke Emezi, which is a really interesting look at sexual abuse and trauma, but from a BIPOC, LGBT and disability rep book perspective. Narrative perspective, that's what I'm looking for. Really, really beautiful, suitable for young adults and YA and middle grade, but really looking at some dark material. Beautiful, beautiful. So automatically staying. We then have my ever-growing Elle McNichols middle grade collection. So Like a Charm, Like a Curse, Show Us Who You Are, and A Kind of Spark. Beautiful neurodivergence rep and a variety of dyspraxia, autism, ADHD, all kinds of things in here. Really, just really cleverly done. And then of course, because I've got A Kind of Spark, I've also got on my TBR Keedy, which is about I think her name's Ellie? Addie's older sister Keedy, who is also neurodivergent, and what she goes through before they truly understand what neurodivergence means in their family. Addie's quite lucky in that at least her family understand it, but they understand it because Keedy is neurodivergent. So a really interesting prequel concept that I'm really looking forward to getting to. And then I have my Anna James collection. Now I do also have book 5, and there are, I think, 6 or 7 books in this series. Now, I loved Pages & Co. I thought it was really, really clever. Those upside down. They are. Let's do it that way. A really, really clever concept for books in the idea that it's a young girl who loves reading, who then falls into books and then creates a map of books. And like the way the narrative kind of continues and the world builds in each one, I really appreciate and I think is really great. They are chunky and they are taking up space. And I wonder if it would be better if I unhauled these and just enjoyed them as audiobooks moving forward. I do prefer middle grade as audiobooks rather than as tangible copies. So that would, because I feel like that's going to take up majority of that gap. And I have a lot of space. So I am going to put these here as maybes. Because as much as I love this series and I love recommending this series, I just think that maybe it's better that I do it as audiobooks instead. They're there as maybes. Which gives this gap enough space for my TBR, which, as odds go, is not ideal. But considering there are a few TBR books in here already, I'm going to forgive myself. The first one that I'm going to put on my TBR is Catty Wampus. This was recommended to me by Ali, but gifted to me by Becca. I know nothing other than it is whimsical witches and magic. Sold. Here for it. I have School for Fireflies by Erica Gomez. I think this was meant to be stock. I don't think this was supposed to go on my TBR. I think this is supposed to go on Waypoint Bookshelf. So I'm going to put it here. If I have space for it, I'll keep it, but I don't think I will, and I think that is supposed to be stock. So I have Melissa by Alex Gino. Now, I originally read this as George. I haven't read this tangible copy, which is why it is in my TBR. It also has coffee stains on it, which are not from me. The day that I bought this and 2 other books, I was walking through Canterbury and someone put their empty coffee cup in my bag instead of just in the bin and stained my books. And to this day, I will never forgive that person. Like, that's such a messed up thing to do. I digress. This is a book about a trans character, which is why it was originally called George, but it's now called Melissa because that is Melissa's new name, not their dead name. So I want to reread it. It is technically a book I've read, but I want to reread it. It is staying on my shelf. I have Read, Scream, Repeat, which is a collection of middle grade spooky stories with some of my favourite authors on them, such as Phil Hicks and Elle McNichols. I need to read it. I've TBR'd it twice. I think I've TBR'd it for 2 separate Gothobas and not read it yet. I need to read it. And then I also have from Jennifer Killick the first book in the Dreadwood series. So we're keeping that one as well. I recently read Alex Gino's Alice Austen Was Here and did really, really enjoy it. I didn't enjoy it as much as I enjoyed Melissa, and I think I could get away with not keeping this one just because I've got Melissa. I would recommend this. It is a book about a young person called Sam who is non-binary, who has to do a history project on interesting people that grew up in Staten Island, and they discover Alice Austen, who was a photographer who specialised in LGBT photography in Staten Island, and they basically write their project about this person. And it's really interesting, and it looks at relationships between adults and children, and it also looks at LGBT representation in history. And it's short. It's a really cute little middle grade, but I don't think I need to keep it because I don't know if I would reread it. So I think actually it's not even a maybe. I think I'm going to pass. It's only a little one, but I'm going to pass. I then have The Dark and Dangerous Gifts of Dolores Mackenzie, which this was a Patreon pick and I was really, really tempted to read it. However, I did try to read like the first couple of chapters. I got to page 21 apparently, and then kind of just lost interest in it and just haven't picked it up again since. I don't know if I want to waste this space on it. So this is another maybe. We're maybeing The Dark Arts of Dolores Mackenzie because I just don't know. I just don't know if it's what I want to spend that shelf space on. There's so little space and we're coming so close to the end of this challenge that I'm just like, I need to be really brutal, and that one might not make it. I have The Secret Sunshine Project of Benjamin Dean, and I've also pre-ordered their most recent book, although I cannot remember. I think it's about a Nepo baby and it's a slasher thriller, and I think it's a YA, but other than that I can't remember what it's called. I'm struggling, but I will try and stick it here. But I've ordered that one anyway. This is another middle grade LGBT and BIPOC rep book. And that's all I really needed to know. I know that I want to read more books that have those reps, so in middle grade form is even better. I have By Ash Oakenthorne, which was on my maybe pile because I've read the first one. I've read this one as part of Patreon, and I do really want to read the second one, which is the Rowan one. But again, do I want to do it as something tangible, or do I want to do it as an audiobook? Because this is essentially about these little sprite-like people who live in the woods, and then something about their world starts to change. I don't want to spoil too much, but they end up having to travel to the city, and they meet all of these different creatures, and they see the world as it has become rather than what they've experienced in the woods. And it's really interesting, and it is very much a book about conservationism and the beauty of nature and going out and seeing the magic in the world. And I think that whimsy works really well as an audiobook. So I do have space for it, and I would have space for the second one at the moment, but I think it's a maybe. I think it's a maybe. In classic Hannah style, I bought The Wild Robot, and then I bought the 2 sequels, which is The Wild Robot Escapes and The Wild Robot Protects. This is like a Netflix film now that I've not watched yet, but I want to read and then I want to watch. But essentially a robot goes out into the wild and saves creatures, I think is the long and short of what this is. So yeah, sold. I think that sounds really cute. It sounds really cute. It didn't make it onto my hardbacks shelf. I saved it for here, but I've got my Kieran Morwood Hargraves A Secret of Bird and Bone, which is a middle grade ghost story. I love her writing, so it's staying. That is packed. And then the last one that I have, which is Escape Room by Christopher Edge, I was really tempted to unhaul But I don't think I've got enough space for these, but I would have enough space to keep these. But do I want to? Would I rather keep these 4 or these 3? Because I feel like I can get rid of the second series because I just didn't enjoy them as much. Oh, this one I haven't read yet, but this one I just didn't enjoy as much. But I did really like the originals. Or do I keep just the first one so that I can recommend it but get rid of the others? Would that fit? Because I've done that before. I've kept the first book in a series before. I think I've unhauled some of them recently, but I have kept the first book so that I can recommend them before. But this gap is narrow. She is a narrow gap. Whereas that fits kind of beautifully in that gap. And then I've got space for at least my hand and thus 1 more book. Okay, we're gonna keep this one. We're gonna keep this collection. We're going to see how we get on, and then I'm going to unhaul my Pages & Co., which I am really sad about because I do really, really like this series, but I just think they are really, really chunky, and if I'm thinking of, like, saving space and making sure that I'm not taking over the entire living room with my books, which would be really unfair, I think these ones I will need to pass. So, there we go. My packed or pass. I've unhauled 4 books, which is not too bad, and actually I thought it was going to be way worse than that. Seeing them in stacks versus seeing them on the shelf has kind of alleviated some of that guilt, but it could have been a lot worse. And I think I would definitely do these as audiobooks anyway, so I'm not losing out, I'm not missing out. I have only bought the Treehouse Library recently though. That's on me. If you want to leave a comment down below to let me know you were here, feel free to leave a little robot emoji. Treat yourself to something from Waypoint Books because it supports me and my content. Check out the links down below because I have a Patreon now. And most importantly, have a nice day.